Asia values reverence for their elderly. There was a tradition of caring for elderly family members as they cared for their children. This trend is rapidly disappearing as the elderly population of Southeast Asian countries has exploded in the first part of the century. Taking care of the elderly is described by many as daunting. The young are turning over the burden of the elderly to the state, and the state is charging them. Asia is shifting from traditional elderly care with multifamily homes to state-funded elderly care, which is rapidly becoming the norm. Traditional elderly care in the US, 40% of adults are either caring for a child or another adult with significant health problems. It is still said in Japan that families shouldn't live further away from elderly family members than one can carry a bowl of soup. And the teachings of Confucius still influence some aspects of elderly care. Observing a father's will, serving your parents at home, and staying physically close to them. Many Asians still practice these traditional values of caring for their parents, nursing them through old age, and being there for their eventual death. In Korea, however, there are well-documented statistics of elderly abandonment. 1/3 of Korean seniors live alone. Churches see the elderly lining up for up to 6 hours to receive a gift of fruit and 50 cents. Jong Min-chan wrote about how South Korea's poverty-stricken elderly and the meager allowances that the government provides, forcing many to live below poverty levels. This is especially shocking in the faces of the Korean economic boom, and seems like a refusal to help those who contributed to Korea's success. Japan has a similar problem. Waiting lists for nursing homes are at 3 times the capacity. The ratio of elderly to youth will be 4-to-1 in the next 20 years. Japan is rapidly becoming a country of the elderly, with 26% of the elderly being the population. Their crime rate is even exceeding that of the youth. Notice that the elderly are often not provided for has led to China's establishing Confucius laws, which require children to visit or provide for their elderly parents. This can be a burden for an only child. People are being sued for not visiting their parents, and there are guardianship issues in the case of divorced parents. So what does all of this mean? A new set of problems and solutions are developing about abuse of the elderly to an increased demand for nurses and healthcare specialists. As the retirement age increases, labor issues are created in the workforce. Caring for parents is important as a means of repaying for your childhood care, but as the world shifts away from that tradition, there's a need for additional government assistance, which is never enough due to rising healthcare costs. The elderly have given birth to Asia's newest problem. A new elderly rights law passed in China wags a finger at adult children, warning them to never neglect or snub elderly people, and mandating that they visit their elderly parents often, regardless of how far away they live. The law includes enforcement mechanisms too. Offspring who fail to make such trips to mom and dad face potential punishment ranging from fines to jail time. If the elderly rights law is any indication, Chinese parent-children relationships have become a bit complicated lately. Eastern cultures like China's adhere to the Confucian tradition of filial piety, which prioritizes the family unit and values elders with the utmost respect. But China's rapid industrialization has forced people to flock to urban areas for work, causing many adult children to move farther away from their parents, who often remain in the rural areas and are unfit to pick up and move. How cultures view and treat their elderly is closely linked to their most prized values. The Koreans' agenda is a little bit different. Not only do Koreans respect the elderly, but they also celebrate them. For Koreans, the 60th and 70th birthdays are prominent life events, which are commemorated with large-scale family parties and feasts. As in Chinese culture, the universal expectation in Korea is that roles reverse once parents age, and that it is an adult child's duty, and an honorable one at that, to care for his or her parents. Like the Chinese and the Koreans, the Japanese prize filial piety and expect children to dutifully tend to their parents. But Japan also faces the unique problem of tending to an increasingly elderly population. According to social gerontology, a multidisciplinary perspective, 7.2% of the Japanese population will be 80 or older in 2020, compared to 4.1% in the US, which will likely lead to a host of new problems for the country. Adult diapers are already outselling baby diapers, and the pension system is on course to dry up. All of this being said, elderly care has clearly become a huge need at a very rapid pace. The standard of elderly living differs throughout the world, but I think it needs to be globally mandated on some level. Think of it this way. How would you want your parents or loved ones to be treated when they reach an age of inability to provide for themselves? Will you take on that task, or will you entrust a stranger to care for them?